Hey kids, it's your friendly, crazy, lunatic-y type person again. Hello! Right, Manchester. I know, not the best cup of tea, definitely time for a cup of tea. Right, so, we're scared half to death. Let's just get that one out of the way. It's perfectly okay to be afraid, who wouldn't be? The real question is, what are you going to do? My life has been extremely hard. Mild understatement. Wasn't through choice either, I was dropped in it. And I had no choice but to get my butt in gear and try and survive, whilst maintaining a quality of life that was good enough. And that involves interacting with other people. I'm not really a socialist as much as a social-ism. Or I'm not a socialish, I'm very social. So I suppose I'm a socialism. I'm not a socialist. That political movement is a bit daft. It's been hijacked by some really daft people. The problem you've got with all of this is ultimately, if we had left all those Iraqi Kurds and other people to die under Saddam, to suffer and die for real, I don't doubt that the far left and far right would be jubilant. Yay, they're all dead, but we can go back to sleep now. That's not why my granddad took 2 bullets in World War II. There's always been a certain get up and go that this country's had. Now, in the past it wasn't that great. We used to go off and nick other people's stuff. It wasn't brilliant. But after World War II, we became international peacekeepers via NATO, the United Nations, and Europe. And we got our bums in gear and went, right, let's go save the world. And off we went. The UN is good. I'm glad it's there, but it isn't perfect. Bosnia-Herzegovina, Srebrenica, the massacre there. To save lives, NATO had to do their own thing because the UN kept getting it wrong. That was real, it really happened. The far left won't tell you that. Unfortunately, the far left are trying to rewrite the history books in the same way Hitler did. Don't get me wrong, so are the far right, but this one is about the far left. You'd expect the far right to be a bunch of cowards who would run and hide and say, oh, it's a foreigner. Oh, I'm afraid, it's a foreigner. Check it out, it's a foreigner. You'd expect that. They are that pathetic. For the far left to do it as well? Well, this is the thing, the far left don't want to throw Johnny Foreigner out. But if Johnny Foreigner lives, I don't know, 400 miles away, they're happy to leave them to die because the UN said so. As I said, Bosnia happened and it was a clusterfuck. It really was a cock-up. The peacekeepers weren't allowed to do anything. I know squaddies who served out there. They actually had to sit there for real and say, you've got people with AK-47s pointing them at you and you're not allowed to defend yourself. You're just supposed to sit there and, we're British. They weren't allowed to use their guns. Crazy things like that. They were not allowed to engage. And the Srebrenica massacre was real. This was how bad the UN was at peacekeeping last time round. So when we went into Iraq, I mean, don't get me wrong, I agree that the strategies were bad. But the fact of the matter is, we did find mass destruction weapons. We found poison gas. We found bioweapons. Well, the ingredients to make bioweapons. Samples, science, it was all there. The only thing missing was nuclear. Everything else was there. The far left won't tell you that. They're lying. That's really dangerous. So that's why I'm saying this. Because don't get me wrong, I am far left myself, but I'm not one of them. I believe in certain left-wing economic things, but I'm not afraid to help a foreigner. Why? Because I'm an internationalist. It's simple enough to follow. You make sure local is okay. Obviously, if there's no local, no taxes paid. No taxes paid, you can't help Johnny Foreigner. You also can't help yourselves. Yeah. So you need local functional. But at the end of the day, if Johnny Foreigner is trading with us, and quite frankly, they're good people, why will we leave them to die? Why will we sit there and go, who cares? Now this is what makes me even more annoyed with what the far left are doing. Iraq was Saddam. That was all created by us. In the 1980s, Thatcher and Reagan tampered with far too many foreign Arab nations. That's why so many of them hate us. Because we fiddle with their politics. We got involved. Putin is doing it to us now. So, it's not going to be good. This led to, ultimately, a bunch of Arab locals saying, nope, we want our votes. If you look at my feed, I've spent the last 24 hours, ever since Manchester happened, over that now, putting up information showing you what it's really like out there because of how bad some of these supposedly progressive news sites are. Some of what they put up is propaganda garbage and genuine fake news. There were weapons of mass destruction. If you see the photos of Halabja, and if you see what bioweapons do, you will see entire towns dead. Innocent people lying in the streets, dead. Thousands of them. These images are real. They were captured to show you why poison gas is not an option, why bioweapons are not an option, ultimately why nuclear weapons are not an option as well. As I said, in Iraq, the only thing we didn't find was a nuke. Everything else was there. The far left are lying to you, and this is awfully serious, because you're going to have to make a decision soon. Quite a few decisions, actually. What sort of crowd do you want to be? Do you honestly want to leave good people to rot and die? The thing about the Arab Spring is that it was an important movement for freedom. Now, don't get me wrong, it hasn't gone very well. Egypt, not working. Saudi, they didn't get it, but they went, ooh, blimey, they're getting angry. And if you've noticed, Saudi have given their women the right to vote. They've actually taken a step forward and said, right, fine, let them vote. Don't get me wrong, they're still a bit backwards compared to us, but they have taken a step forward because they saw a change in dynamic in their neck of the woods. They saw their people going, hang on a minute, we'd like our vote, please, it would be nice. Oh, I'm female, I'd like my vote. And there were enough of them doing it. The Arab Spring was important. Colonel Gaddafi, he was linked to terrorists. Of course he was. Duh. He was toppled, and the Free Libyans are trying to get their votes in place. Don't get me wrong, ISIS are causing trouble, but that's why we, the UK, helped the Free Libyans. In Iraq, Saddam was a bit of a problem, weapons of mass destruction, they were there. They were. The whole town dead is definitely mass destruction. Pretty sure that's mass destruction. Yep. May not be Terminator 2, but if you don't know your chemistry, I'm sorry, but Saddam did have weapons of mass destruction, and the Iraqis are enjoying their vote. I mean, don't get me wrong, ISIS are bad, but we are helping the Iraqis squeeze ISIS out. Us. If you look at Syria, it's not that simple, because that's Putin's territory, and Putin is saying no, stay out of it. United Nations, as you do, we're getting some kit to our Kurdish friends. Fair enough. Because our Kurdish friends, Arabs, I know, they'll say they're Kurdish, but they're from that neck of the woods. They're Muslims, and they're fighting ISIS, and they're helping us. For every ISIS militant they kill down there, that's one less bugger jumping on a plane and blowing up someone in Manchester. That's why we help them, because they are helping us. Teamwork. Don't ever forget teamwork. It's vital. The end game is pretty straightforward. ISIS squished, and those who work together to squish ISIS, free Libyans, free Iraqis, ultimately free Syrians, hopefully, the Kurds and that. All of that will mean trade hubs. As people rebuild, you never know. They may want the British power plug. They may decide that having an Earth is a good idea. The Americans don't like it, the Europeans don't like it, we like it. That's why you have 3 pins. There's an Earth. It's actually the safest plug you can get. You never know. These people, when they rebuild, may decide to get their parts that they need to rebuild from us. And at the same time, if they've got locals up this way who are getting along with the Syrians who fled up this way, it's much easier to make that trade deal. And that means a bunch of British workers in their various shapes, sizes and colours assembling items which are then sold to Libya, Iraq, Syria. Jobs for real. Internationalism, that's what it's about. I mean, don't get me wrong, you have to have certain controls in place. You can't just let anyone in. But the trade deals have to be there. So when I see significant political movements saying that we should close the borders and essentially turn tail and run, firstly, my God, that's cowardly. I mean, that is really cowardly. We created Saddam and that lot. We fiddled with politics we shouldn't have fiddled with. We created this terrorist problem. And then we had to go in, working with the locals, to stop them. And as ISIS happily proves, those terrorists were firing on locals down there as well as us up here. It's really, really obvious. It's amazingly obvious. So this is why I'm so worried that both far right and far left are telling porcupines and actually getting somewhere. Free speech is important, but you have to put work in to maintain it. As the American Special Forces say, freedom isn't free. Even as a civilian like us lot, I'm NHS. I just step up and get it done. But you have to work, you have to put the effort in, you have to try. Which means trying, not turning tail and running. So when you see the soldiers out on the street, remember this. At present, technology-wise, those soldiers are the smartest cookies when it comes to dealing with bombs, because they've come back from Iraq and Afghanistan and that, and they know how these bombs work. They also have the best equipment. Taxpayers' money is paying for these squaddies and their robots. Why shouldn't we use them? It's really obvious. As for Flopsy the bunny rabbit, who's having a panic attack because, oh no, I really hate to say this, but these are the people that actually need to start looking at why they're so anxious and getting medical help. You can't destroy entire swathes of the country because you're nervous. If you're nervous, you need to do something about that. I have had PTSD, severe anxiety, etc. Still got it technically. I got past it. It's doable, but you've got to try. So if you're afraid, ask yourself why. Because as I said, freedom isn't free. If you refuse to get involved and just sit on your high horse and go, oh no, I'm not going to get him, you end up surrounded by ruin. Someone has to do the work. And when we're talking about something as big as ISIS, jihadis, they're not Muslims. If you actually study what they preach, it is nothing like Islam. Medieval Islam wasn't great, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about modernized Islam. It's the same as if you look at the Bible. If you look at the Bible, it advocates stoning women to death. Will a modern priest tell you that? Nope. They'll say, oh, it was a long time ago. Muhammad marrying a 13-year-old. Oh, it was a long time ago. Of course it was. It was medieval times. Nothing was perfect back then. There are parts of America now that still do child brides. Careful on that one. So, all of this material coming out of the far right, so I've been tracking the far right since about 2008, finding out what the hell they've been saying. And it's always the same thing. We don't want to get involved. Let them do it. I'll simply say this. Do you agree with a group of people with sticks attacking a group of people with machine guns? Think about it. A bunch of people with sticks versus a bunch of people with machine guns. The people with the machine guns are just going to kill them. There is zero chance of success if all you have is a stick. So if you hear some far right person saying, oh, they should have stood and fought, oh, we would in World War II. We didn't stand and fight in World War II. We had to retreat first. Dunkirk. We had to retreat first, regroup, retrain, and then go back. If you've got an Arab man who's got his family to safety, or a Kurdish man, whichever, his first priority was to get his family to safety. That is not cowardice, that is honour. Because you are standing to make sure that your family and kids live. If he then chooses to help us by possibly going back, or possibly building something here that helps the war effort, then fair play. Because he's pitching in to help. You don't have to pick up a machine gun to help. And quite frankly, you don't have to suicide yourself by picking up a stick and charging at a machine gun nest. These far-right people are expecting a bunch of untrained, unarmed people to run at machine gun nests. That's a suicide run. It is insanely stupid strategy. Incredibly stupid. It's stupider than World War I strategy. And that's saying something. World War I was nuts. It really doesn't work that way. At the end of the day, as a man, or a woman for that matter, the Kurdish female fighters are very impressive. Your first priority is to get your family to safety, and then after that, you then deal with the bad guy. In World War II, we had to do Dunkirk first before we regrouped, and then went back and jobbed Hitler. We had to retreat first and then go back. Most likely, a hell of a lot of these refugees coming our way are going to have to do the same thing. They were not prepared. They weren't. You'd be amazed how many of these people are just like you or I. They're trained in medicine or computer programming. They're not soldiers. They don't know a damn thing about fighting. That's it in a nutshell. It really is that simple. You had a bunch of civilians come our way, and some of them are going to go back, and others are going to help the war effort up here. So that's it. We had to retreat at Dunkirk first before we then regrouped. We weren't ready. So we got ready. Then we went back. Simple enough to follow. Now when it comes to... how can I put this? As I said, you can't send people running at machine gun nests when they're not appropriately trained and equipped. That's suicide. You're just getting killed. It's a complete waste. Only the far right would be that stupid. But at the same time, refusing to get involved in the first place is the stupidity of the far left. There's a point where you have to step up and say, these people are dying, this ain't right. It takes courage, it takes balls. Hello, darling. My little girl, she's meowing. Say hello. Here you go, it's a little bird. Good girl. There you go. Good girl. Yeah. Sorry, she has little lady problems, but she's all right. You good, darling? Oh, good girl. So yeah, it makes me angry. I mean, I've spent the last 24 hours putting up material showing you what's really going on. How our people down there, including our spies, yeah, you've got Muslims working for us who are spying. This is the point I want to make. At the moment, there is an argument that Muslims need to do more. They need to speak out more. Brr. Two things. Firstly, I agree at a basic level, but second point, it has to be safe. If you've got, I don't know, 50-year-old Ahmed who's run up this way with his family, he's got his family to safety, and he's now working, I don't know, stacking shelves in some factory to make sure that you have your supply of food to your village or town. So he's pitching in to help in his way. He's got a job, he's getting on with it. He may be a shopkeeper, who knows? Yeah, I'm going to say it, okay. Right, let's actually do this. Dear the Sun, you're a bunch of prats, hurry up and resign. When it comes to the Troubles, if you were a local who wanted peace, you had two major options. You either grass the IRA, working with the police forces, and not being funny, but there are people who are executed for grassing the IRA, or they were kneecapped, shot in both knees to the point where they'll never walk again. Boom, splat. If you get kneecapped, your knee is destroyed. There is no way to rebuild it. Even now our technology is still flimsy on this one. It is a devastating injury. Your ability to walk is gone. They'll do both kneecaps just to be sure you never walk again, and it sends an absolute wave of terror throughout the community. That was the IRA doing it. Thankfully, what the IRA wanted was something vaguely civilized. They wanted a fair break for the Irish. They wanted us English to stop being so damn imperial. In simple terms, it was near enough. Look at the work of Mo Moland. That wasn't Jeremy Corbyn, that was Mo Moland under Blair. Corbyn just hung around on the edge. He did speak to a few people, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't a key figure. Peace was achieved because we actually sat down and talked about it. Now, what makes ISIS different, before anybody says anything, it is different, okay? The IRA were careful and calculated in how they did their things, in that they didn't want to get their own people killed. It's very rare for the IRA to do a suicide run. With ISIS, it's normal. ISIS are so mentally crazy, they aren't afraid to die to get the job done. It is proper nutty crazy. So if you've got Ahmed, who's, I don't know, stacking shelves or running a shop, and he's 50 years old, and he hears something, and he thinks, that sounds bad, better grass. ISIS have knives, they have guns, they have bombs. Will ISIS live long enough, will Ahmed live long enough to testify? Because this is what it's about. It's a court process. You have to testify. And killing the witness is a standard gangsterism. If they can't get a witness declared crazy, so that the witness is then ignored, they will kill them. In fact, it's actually better to get them declared crazy because there's no body then. But ISIS isn't that well set up yet. So because of that, what they're doing is standard intimidations and threats and deaths. So can Ahmed grass safely? I'm saying not yet. Even with the best of intentions, I don't think we've got the witness protection system needed. And not being funny, but Ahmed and his family will then have to disappear. And when ISIS have cyber hackers, it is so difficult to hide people. So it's not that simple. If Ahmed grasses, none of us are going to complain. But this is why the British Army and British spies, some of them Muslim, are having to infiltrate communities so that a properly trained soldier can sit there and listen. Because Ahmed can't grass yet because it's not safe, but at least someone else can grass. Someone who is trained to do it properly. So when I see Katie Hopkins and why aren't the Muslims doing more? Because they can't. Not yet. At the same time, it's also important to remember that if you've got a bunch of the local white thugs yelling at you, it becomes very difficult to trust a white police officer. If you look at Chinatown, Chinatown is a good example because it's an enclave of Chinese people doing things their way, but they obey British law and they do work with the surrounding security services. Why? Because they don't get any shit. No one's firing on them. The Muslims? Well, it's not going to be easy, is it? Because the local meatheads are going to be out yelling at them. Stop yelling at the Muslims. All the time you yell at them, they get afraid. If they get afraid, and they're afraid of you and they're afraid of ISIS, they can't grass to anyone. How are they supposed to do the right thing when the people they're supposed to work with, white people, are acting like arseholes? They can't, can they? Then that's before you consider whether Ahmed is going to have both his kneecaps blown apart or possibly even the back of his head blown off. If you know my newsfeed, you will know just quite how detailed the pictures I get are. I've put up pictures of kids blown in too, to show you what it's really like. So that you get it, so that you understand. Education. You must understand to make the decisions needed. It's not that simple being a Muslim in this country, it's not. Especially when this government is championing politics the BNP would be proud of, the Conservative agenda. It is EDL. It's awfully similar to the 2010 BNP manifesto. Awfully similar. And that is a problem. You've got senior Tories saying, not being funny, but we've gone too right wing here, Don't get me wrong, they're in a minority. The old Tory guard is being squeezed out by a new guard, and this new guard, they're trying to normalise the EDL. And that means a bunch of white people yelling at a bunch of Muslims, and a bunch of Muslims also being in danger from Daesh, ISIS. So a bunch of Muslims are having a lot of trouble grassing. Ooh, catch-22. If you want, I mean, this is the thing about union. The United Kingdom, union has to be by consent. Otherwise, no one trusts anyone. This is why the IRA put their guns down. Because we got involved with Europe and stuff like that, and human rights came in, and things improved for the Irish. It's one of the major things. As I said, look up what Mo Molan and that lot did. It's all documented, it's real. Sarah Jones knows about it locally. Look at it. It's real, it's there, it really happened. The problem is that ISIS are so extreme that you can't sit down and talk to them. They're a bunch of nutters who think it's glorious to die killing children. It's usually a bad start, let's face it, it's not the healthiest frame of mind. Proper fucking crazy. How on earth do you talk someone like that down? And this is where we head into Fortress Europe. We need a solid defense line so that ISIS can't get through. And that is going to involve a maximum level of teamwork. Which means Brexit is stupid, as I've been saying for a while now. The BNP want you to draw the drawbridge up and make sure no one is let in and switch off immigration and all that rubbish. The fact you're panicking and falling for it, well, that's your stupidity, not mine. You a man or a mouse? Step up. It takes courage to risk your... I mean, some of the stuff I do in Croydon's quite hairy. Risk of being stabbed, stuff like that. It takes courage to step up and save someone. Where is the English courage at the moment? Because I'm not reading it. I'm seeing it in Scotland, seeing it in Ireland. The Welsh, they're there. Northern England, yeah, the big cities are hanging in there. Anything that isn't a big city, I'm just seeing cowardice. Rank cowardice. To the point where you're willing to destroy your own economy in the process. Full-scale panic, and it's not a tactical retreat, you are fleeing. Like, I'm sorry, but I find you utterly, utterly embarrassing. Advocating BNP politics because Johnny Foreigner might need some help? Come on, that is vile. And you are doing it. So stop doing it. Jeremy Corbyn may be a wet blanket, but there are others who get it. Theresa May is advocating politics the BNP will be proud of. Spot the problem. We have a major problem in our politics at the moment. Jeremy Corbyn may be fairer on immigration, but he's the one that's saying that we should leave certain parts of certain bits to die. Well, that's what it looks like anyway. Yes, just leave the Iraqis. Who cares? No. This UN excuse. He was there when Bosnia happened and the UN failed. He was there when all those newspapers were reporting the stuff that Saddam was trying to hide. He was there. So why is he denying it existed when it really did exist and he was there? Why is he doing that? Doesn't add up, does it? We have a major problem in our politics. Far right doesn't work, but nor does far left. We need the centre ground back. Back when the English actually had some courage and a sense of fairness. Haven't seen that for a while. Not for about a decade. What happened, people? You might want to fix that. It's pretty embarrassing. I think I've said all I need to say. Thank you very much.